are going to go on with our trip in Africa. Africa was amazing. It is a great place to go. It's an awesome place to go if you have had it on your bucket list for a long time. We talked a little bit about bucket lists and those things that you really, really want to do and don't get to do in your lifetime, or do because you make that choice. I've always had the feeling that you need to do things when you are able to do them. So if you have the capability and the finances to go to Africa and that's on your bucket list, you need to do it. We had a set of friends that went with us on a trip to Spain, and as soon as she came back, and we were planning other trips, as soon as they came back, she had an aneurysm and now can't travel. You don't know from one day to another whether or not you will ever be able to travel again, or what your physical, mental, or financial status is going to be. So if you have the capability, whenever you can along the way, we've traveled since the day we were married. We budgeted, and we would decide how much we were going to spend on a trip, and then would watch for something to come on the top. At that point, because we were young and finances were the biggest consideration, and of course how much time we get off work, but we'd take that time and we would figure out and how much money could we budget to go and travel somewhere. It was important to do it that way because we didn't want to overspend, but yet again we wanted to be able to travel and build these memories for a lifetime. So we would do that, and then we would look for what was on sale to match our budget. If we would have picked out the exact place that we wanted to go and then tried to pay for it, I think it would have been really difficult. But hopefully if you're in the boomer senior category, you are now able to get some of those trips that are on your bucket list. And again, we're back to Africa again. I know I wander a little bit, but those things are important to talk about. Africa was awesome because all of us, including my mother-in-law, who really wanted to travel to Africa, wanted to see the animals. And of course, everybody wants to see the big five. And I thought the big five were the hugest, biggest animals. That's what I expected the big five in Africa to be. Well, the big five in Africa ended up being those that are the most dangerous animals. And so, you know, what are the ones most likely to kill you? Animals. And so we were able to go and see. Kruger Park was our first safari that we went on, our first stop for a reserve. The park was wonderful. We started out in the morning. It was chilly because we left early in the morning. And of course, we were in July. Where we live, it was very hot. Where they live, it was starting to cool down. The sunrise in the morning was beautiful as we set off, and we went down these roads, and they were kind of like a dirt road. We were in these vehicles that were like trucks with seats in the back, and then you sit in the seats and you can see out, but the sides were open, so you felt a little bit exposed when you're out driving around looking for the big five animals. So we go down these roads, and it was just beautiful there, but it took a while. You have to drive into these reserves because, of course, the animals wander these reserves, and they're hundreds of miles. And so, you know, to see them, you won't always see them because they might migrate to other parts of the reserve. But as we went along, our first introduction in the reserve to animal life actually was insect life, and it was an anthill, huge, big anthill. I couldn't believe how big they were. I could see why anteaters need those long noses to go in and get them out. And so we saw that. And then as we went along, they said, keep looking in the bush. And the drivers would talk with each other back and forth and say, we see something over here. And so your vehicle would hurry, and your driver would get you over to that area to see if you were going to be able to see what they were seeing. Because, you know, the animals move. They don't just stand there. They're not in cages. So they may not stay there more than a few minutes. But as we went along, we looked through the trees, and sure enough, we were seeing stripes. One of my favorite things. You see my stripes? I love zebra. And sure enough, back in the bush, there were the zebras. And you could see them standing out in the wild. What a difference it made to see them standing in the wild rather than in a zoo. That was just a huge difference for me, to see the difference it is to see them out in the wild. But we watched these zebras, and we were able to get some pretty close look at the zebras. And they even came out by the road. And some of them would even cross the road. They were just gorgeous. There was a kind of a family of them, and there was a baby one. One of the things that surprised me about zebras was that they had it kind of brown. I just expected the bright white and black, you know, but they had kind of more of a tan and even a brown stripe with them through it. So that was kind of something different. We also, as we went along, saw the giraffes. The giraffes you would see first by seeing their heads stick up over the top of the trees. They were that tall. The giraffes were so tall, and they would walk along at these long gaits, and they would walk along, and they even crossed the road in front of us, and when they crossed the road, it looked like the giraffe was actually tall enough that it could walk right over the car that was there. It was so tall. But these giraffes, they would walk along, and they would eat in the tops of the trees, and you'd see them munch the leaves in the tops of the trees, and they were just, it was just a magnificent thing to see them and be able to get some close-up shots. Now, for a camera, taking pictures of these giraffes, of course, they were up a lot taller than we were, plus they were a little ways away because they're off the road. At this one that I'm looking at now, it's off the road, and I'm able to get a close shot. I am using a Nikon camera with a 300 power lens on it. That allows me to zoom in and to get closer pictures. Now, when I'm out doing a safari, I put the long lens on so that I could get long ways away because I knew that I wasn't going to be getting really close-up shots. There was one point where there was some of the animals that were right next to the vehicle that we were riding in, so we had a quick change camera lens, but most of the time they were further away, and so we used the long lens. But if you were just to take a regular camera with no lens that, that would bring that in closer, you would have trouble getting really good pictures. So make sure you take the right kind of lens with your camera with you when you go on a safari. Some of the other things that we saw that just fascinated me, I loved the trees, and I loved the sunrise and the sunset in the trees. Just shining through. I don't know whether it's from movies or from seeing pictures of Africa, but this red sun through the trees is it just speaks Africa to me. So that just kind of made the whole feeling, the ambience of Africa real for me. We also saw two of the big five, of course, are lions and the water buffalo, the African water buffalo. They are, the ones that would be really ferocious, I guess you would say. And one of the really sad things that we saw, if you're going to go out in the wild, you're not going to see the pretty zoo. Everything's not going to be pretty zoo things, So here we are out in the wild, and here's this lion, and he's old, and he's walking along. He doesn't look very well, and he lays down. And as we go down the road, the driver sees these huge water buffaloes, and they're moving at a fair pace. And he told us that they were going to kill the lion because he was old. And these water buffalo, they hunt and they kill in a pack. And so here they went after this poor old lion. I felt really bad about that. I don't do well when things get hurt. So to hear that, that the water buffalo was there to kill this old lion, I wanted to get out and save the lion. They said, no, this was a natural reserve. They even weren't allowed to stop anything like that because it's a natural progress, or, the way things are supposed to happen. But it still made me really sad to see that. So here's this old lion, and here's the water buffalo coming to get it, and he's just waiting to die. He already knows that he's had, and anyway, it was really sad. So be prepared for things not to be, this happy, pretty picture, because out in the wild it's not always that way. The next thing we came upon were the warthogs. Now, warthogs are really mean too, and they look mean, and I think they look ugly. They have this hair stuff that comes out of them, and they're just kind of an ugly creature, I think. They made them really cute in the movies, but I think they're really ugly in real life. But they were really fascinating. We found them. They were around a pond, and then they kind of went wandering off, and there was, kind of like there was this one, and he had only one tusk, and the other one was, anyway, he's ugly. But, yeah, he had one tusk, and then there were some baby ones there and some small ones that were walking around. Very fascinating creatures, but like I said, they were ugly. But, A lot of the times, the places that you will see the animals the most are around watering holes because they have to come down, they have to get water. It's a very dry area, so they come to the watering holes. So here we're seeing kudus, we're seeing the warthog, we're seeing lots of animals congregated in the area. So a lot of the times, kind of what they did is they would go down in these watering hole areas to see if any of the animals were in that area. So that's kind of one of the places that you go. But the little kudus look like the little deer that we have back home, except for some of them have these weird little squiggly horns on them, and they're really kind of cool. When we were out riding, you had to look up and you had to look down because they could be anywhere. They could be animals back in the bush. Of course, you looked up and here were these huge nests with these big birds in it. And so we got to see some of the wildlife as far as the fowls go. So those big birds up in the trees, they kind of looked like a hawk. And then down on the ground were these little animals, or these little birds. They looked like a pheasant from where I'm from. They had, you know, kind of a brown feather. They matched right into the weeds and the grass. So you really had to watch to see the animals. And everybody would yell out, you know, I see something, I see something. And the driver would stop and would look and see if we could see it. Sometimes it was a long ways away. Sometimes they were close and you could almost miss them. We were driving along and all of a sudden we come upon an elephant and he's right next to the road. And he got his trunk and he's pushing with his head and his trunk onto this tree until he knocked it over onto the road, the side of the road. And we stopped right next to that and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here we are in this open vehicle and we've got this elephant pushing over a tree. And that's how close you can get to the animals. The drivers have to be really aware of the animal's behavior to make sure that it isn't going to charge or knock over our vehicle. But it was more interested in eating the tree. So it would take its trunk and it would wrap around a branch, it would break off the branch, and then stick it in its mouth and chew on the branch. So it was actually eating the branches off of the tree. Not any like leaves or anything, just the actual branches of the trees. It was eating them. When we stopped and looked at this elephant, one of the things that the guy did was tell us about the problems that they have with poachers. Poachers are a huge problem still in Africa. They try to cover this whole reserve area, but there are people that get in still and kill the elephant to get the ivory from the tusks off the elephant. That's still very valuable. They'll kill the whole elephant just to get the tusks. And that's really sad. And, you know, it makes for extinct animals when people do things like that. And they're really trying to prevent that from happening, but occasionally it does still happen. So they did inform us about the different things that happen with the animals as we went along. So an elephant, another of the big five. Another one of the things that we saw that they said they usually don't see is it looked like a fox, some kind of a fox-like creature. That was walking. It came out on the road and then just disappeared. We only got a chance to see it for a couple of minutes, but evidently this is another one of the animals that you don't see very often. We were very fortunate. We saw a lot of animals on this trip that they don't usually see all in one day. Along the side of the road, we saw some of the most interesting birds I think I've ever seen. This is one of my favorites. He had this long yellow bill that came out. And he was just a beautiful bird, but he looked almost like a toucan, but he's not. I don't know what he's called, but we got to see some of the most interesting birds along the way. So there was a little pheasant-like looking bird, and then we saw one that looked like a peacock without the big tail feathers, but just like a little peacock. And oh, they shone in the sun, and they had blues and greens, and they were just really pretty. And then there was another pretty blue-green bird that sat up in a tree, had bright yellow eyes, and it was just gorgeous with it. Just almost a fluorescent green-blue to it. Today we were on this trip into the park, we were able to see the big five, the elephant, the lion, and the African water buffalo. So 3 of the big 5 in that trip. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you had fun. Here I am in my zebra because I love the animals so much I even wear their print. Join us again at www.boomerandSeniorTravel.tv